Hey there, my friends. I have a look for you at the Somnia Tarot today, and I think it's really beautiful. It's a really powerful deck, but this isn't an unboxing, and I'm glad that I looked at it before I started to make this video, because the deck is an artist's response to their experience with sleep paralysis and insomnia, and I think it's really powerfully represented in the cards. I also will say, after having looked at it, that there's some imagery in this deck that may be distressing to people who have experienced certain kinds of violence. There are images of ropes and people being bound, and faces being covered in such a way that it could trigger certain responses in people who have experienced certain kinds of violence. So I just want to preface the walkthrough by saying, if you are someone who may feel dismayed by that or distressed by that, no tarot deck, no video no curiosity is worth distressing yourself further or triggering any kind of response. And if you start to feel yourself becoming uncomfortable, feel free to end the video. You know what I mean? Don't put yourself through something. I just want to sort of give that warning. I think it's a gorgeous, breathtaking deck. I don't have an experience like that, and I found it unsettling in some instances. So I just wanted to put that note out there before we look at the cards, so that no one sort of encountered this accidentally and found something that was unpleasant, despite the beauty of this art. So with all that being said, let's take a look at this really kind of exceptionally rare deck. Well, rare deck isn't really the right word, but a really kind of unusual deck for sure. And I hope you enjoy it. Be good. All right, my friends. This is the Somnia Tarot by Nicholas Bruno. It's a new deck, and it is an independently created deck. It's a photographic deck. Photographic decks are not my sort of go-to when I'm working with tarot, but when I saw some images from this particular deck, I think it was actually Mary Kay Greer. Mary Kay Place is an actor. Mary Kay Greer posted this on Facebook, I think is where I had seen it. And I can't remember if it was a Kickstarter or a pre-order, but I thought it was unlike anything I had ever seen. It's a deck that the artist created sort of in response to their experience with insomnia and sleep paralysis. And it's a work of art that it sort of reflects that experience through tarot. It's really honestly breathtaking. As I mentioned in the intro to this video, this is not an unboxing. I have looked at this already, and you heard my disclaimer already too, so you know what I have to say about the cards. All that being said, I really think it's an astonishing deck. It did make me uneasy as I was looking at the cards, and I think in a way that's kind of the point. I think this is, I would wager, probably art first, tarot deck later, although I think it's certainly usable as a tarot deck. The intent of the artist, in this case, I have gathered, is to reflect this experience with sleep paralysis. And so the images are sometimes alarming, and you can see just from the cover, a bit unusual and a bit astonishing, really. So I just wanted to put that out there just in case anyone sort of, again, felt distressed. So it's beautifully packaged in a box. Oh, I zoomed in a little too soon. In a beautiful gold and blue box. Two colors I think look incredible together. And the box says on the back, explore the worlds of tarot through the visions of Nicholas Bruno, an artist who transforms his dreams and nightmares into surreal imagery. Each artwork within the Somnia Tarot showcases Bruno's work within the mediums of photography, sculpture, and costume design. The Somnia Tarot is comprised of a box set of 78 full-color cards and an informational booklet. And then the artist's website is where you can go to see more about the creation of the deck. It's nicholasbrunophotography.com. Nicholas, the Greek spelling, Ncolas. But I'll try to leave a link to that. So the cards themselves are really nice. I haven't shuffled this yet. Here's the little booklet. It actually doesn't give much information about the creation of the deck, but you can go to the website. Really nice. And then the cards, this really deep blue of the box is the same for the back, and it has this sort of Masonic looking symbol to it. And then let's look at the cards. Cardstock is nice. I haven't shuffled it yet, so I can't say how well it will or will not shuffle, but we will discover as we proceed. So here's the Fool. And I want to say right out of the gate, like there is some photo manipulation in this deck, but it's effortless. You cannot tell. You cannot see it. And I am really astonished by how... I don't even know if there's a word. I mean, it is very dreamlike, but it is very sort of scary in a way, too. There's this inability to escape from this world of these cards. As you can see, there are no visible faces in the deck. And I think as such could be really alarming to someone. I don't know, that I would pull this deck for a client I haven't worked with before. But it's really sort of breathtaking. I mean, I really mean that. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I don't really talk a lot about imagery, but just to look at this emperor, there's this anvil hanging over the emperor's head, but the rope connecting it is in the emperor's hand. And, there's another card that has a similar setup like that. It's so terrifying in a way. You know what I mean? I think it's sort of, the emperor gets such a bad rap in a lot of decks. I think here it sort of speaks to the reality of leadership and the terror of leadership in some instances. This was all shot on Long Island. And it seems to look like it could be everywhere and anywhere in a weird way. But it's so evocative. This bear trap and strength, I think that's what that is, like, God, terrifying, but not, I don't know how to describe it. I think one of the things about this deck is, in a way, you kind of have to experience it and let it speak for itself. This Wheel of Fortune just blows my mind. If Dali took photography, this might be the kind of photography you would see. But and there are moments in this deck that reminds me of movies. There are moments in this deck that remind me of the movie Midsummer, which I actually really liked. I thought it was a great revenge fairy tale. But so arresting, the images. This is kind of the logo for the deck, this death card. And I obviously have not experienced sleep paralysis, but I know folks who have had similar issues and have talked about really the terror of that feeling. And I think you do, in some of these cards, get that sense. But I don't think it permeates the deck to the degree, again, that it's not a usable piece of tarot art, This tower, again, I think is incredible. Just, whoa. The star is beautiful, especially in a deck, that has sleep as sort of a core element to it. A beautiful moon. I mean, just objectively, this is gorgeous photography. The way that Nicholas Bruno understands light and perspective. I'm not an art critic, but, there are people out there in the world who have sort of smugly said, oh, photography isn't art. Well, that's nonsense. I mean, you can convey emotion in a photograph as much as you can in a painting or a sculpture. And I think you see that here. So now we're into the suits. Here we have the Ace of Wands, the Two of Wands, which I think is really beautiful. This, in a weird way, is a very appropriate deck as we head into the darker time of year, actually. It's a very kind of late autumn into winter feel to it. And there is this ritual quality to it. A thing that impresses me about decks and deck creators is when they're able to take something we've seen so many times and twist it or adjust it or adapt it into something that you recognize as familiar but also entirely new. And I think that this is a deck that has that quality. This Eight of Wands is so sort of, I don't know what the word is. It's so like arresting. Again, I keep using that word. So does this Nine. Here's another example of someone's sort of their own, you know, the rope holding the chandelier is tied to this body. The court cards are really fascinating here. They're as close as you'll get to seeing faces, but you don't see faces. This suit feels very Halloween in a way, so it's appropriate, I suppose, for this time of year. I also just find it, as you know, as someone who likes ghost stories, there's a ghost quality to this deck, a ghostly quality to this deck that I find really cool. The Ace of Cups. 2. So you can see there's some digital manipulation, or at least I assume there is. I can't imagine how you would do this otherwise. And yet, you can't tell. You don't see the artist's hand at work here. It looks like a photograph. It's disarming to see these human figures robed this way with their faces covered this way. And that is a thing that made me uneasy watching it, experiencing it this morning when I opened it. Even in a world now of masks and facial coverings. And I don't have, I don't have a response to that other than that it feels something. And that's what I can say about this deck so far, is that it feels something. Page of Cups. Knight of Cups. Queen of Cups. Whoops. I think this is a deck that, love it or hate it, I don't think there's going to be much in between. I think people will really respond to this deck and find it amazing, or they will look at it and find this awful. I mean, this is a card that when I saw it, I thought, oh God, that's waterboarding, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like, it made me very uneasy. But I think, again, that is an experience the artist is trying to get us to understand, is this experience of insomnia and sleep paralysis. And I have friends who have had sleep issues where they literally are unable to sleep for months and months, and your body starts to, I mean, for lack of a better word, it starts to die in its way. We need sleep, and so the struggle of this friend to try to sleep when various medications and side effects of medications have prevented them from doing it for months at a time is just, it's hard to watch. You can't even begin to imagine what it feels like. We sleep for a reason. So I think that in this deck is that sense of sleeplessness, and also what happens when you do sleep and you're paralyzed by it. And also it's a work of art too, it's beautiful. You know what I mean? I think you may dislike it, and it's hard to say, wow, this is something I like. This experience is often very heavy and in some cases very grim, and it's artistically beautifully achieved, I would say. This is a really fascinating Ten of Swords, and when I saw it, I thought, oh, how, just and I on my monitor here I can see that it's dark. I don't know, we'll see when I look at the footage whether it's this dark. It is very dark in the card. It's hard to see a lot of the detail. Here's the Page of Swords, Knight of Swords, Queen, and the King. And so now we get into coins. So here's the Ace, the 2. I mean, this is either acrobatic realness or whoa, it's photoshopped. But either way, it looks amazing. 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then we have the final quartz, the page. This is almost taking the 4 and jumping into the future. Knight. Queen. And king. I imagine that someone will ask, what's the deal with the horses? Were real horses used in the production of this deck? I don't know. I imagine that the creator talks about sculpture in this deck. I'm guessing that there's some degree to which there is sculpture in the horses, but I can't say. Horses don't like to stand still for photographs. Cardstock is really thick, so it's not an easy bend. And that's not to say it's impossible to do, and it overhand shuffles really nicely. So it's decent cardstock. Certainly not flimsy, certainly not the kind of thing that you're going to destroy, immediately. I mean, it does leave me sort of stumped, which is something that doesn't happen with a lot of decks. I don't know how I feel about it. I think it's gorgeous. I think it's evocative. I think it's arresting. I think it's haunting. I think it's a little dangerous, and I think it's attempting to depict something terrifying. To do it through tarot and to do it beautifully, I think is really an achievement. Like I said earlier, I don't imagine that it's going to be one that people are going to have sort of simple reactions to. I think people are going to love it or hate it. And maybe that's what, I mean, when I talk about tarot a lot, I talk about tarot as a functional art, and I agree with that. I think this, as I said at the beginning of the video, might be more art than tarot in its way, and I think it is meant to evoke emotion, which, as a reader is something I actually don't want in a lot of decks, and yet I think, in this particular deck, you can't escape it. I mean, it is a very evocative experience. So anyway, but I think it's beautiful and terrifying and cool, So it's a complicated piece of art. But that is the Somnia Tarot by Nicholas Bruno. And I don't know the story of how, I'll put up the artist's website in the description. And I assume that you'll be able to buy this at some point. But that's it. So really, really fascinating, unlike anything I've seen recently. And that was why it's one of the few decks that I saw and sort of immediately ran to back or to pre-order. I haven't had really a lot of strong reactions to decks like this in a while. So Somnia Tarot by Nicholas Bruno. Thanks for watching. Be good. Stay healthy, and we'll talk soon.